Marcus Daniels woke early on a bright spring morning in Manhattan. He moved through his apartment with careful steps, mindful of the soft hum of city life beyond his windows. His wife Olivia was still asleep, and he paused by the bedroom door for a moment to watch her rest. He felt a gentle smile as he remembered the laughter they had shared the night before, talking about a charity event they planned to attend together. He dressed in a tailored navy suit, straightened his crisp white shirt, and slipped on a dark tie. He checked his silver cufflinks, then picked up the slim leather briefcase he used for his consulting work with the city. After a quick breakfast of toast and fresh fruit, Marcus kissed Olivia on the forehead and told her he would be back soon. He walked down the quiet hallway, locking the door behind him, and headed to the garage. His wife's silver Rolls-Royce gleamed under the soft light, its curves elegant and refined. Marcus ran his hand along the polished hood before settling into the driver's seat. He adjusted the mirrors, took a deep breath, and merged into the flow of morning traffic. The drive to the car showroom on Madison Avenue carried him past familiar landmarks. Yellow taxis honked gently as they maneuvered around delivery trucks, and a row of flowering trees lined the sidewalks. Pedestrians paused to admire window displays of high-end boutiques while a street musician played a soft tune on a violin near a cafe entrance. Marcus took in these scenes with a calm mind. He knew the Rolls-Royce would draw attention today, but he felt confident. This visit was to finalize details for a community program, and the showroom had agreed to donate a car ride experience too. Support youth scholarships. When he arrived, the showroom stood tall and modern, its glass facade reflecting the city skyline. A doorman in a crisp uniform greeted him with a nod as he pulled up under a polished awning. The engine's quiet persisted, and Marcus switched off the ignition. He opened the driver's door and stepped onto the smooth stone pavement. Polished shoes clicked softly. He straightened his jacket and checked his reflection in the side of the car. He carried himself with easy grace, aware that the gleaming Rolls-Royce made a statement, but believing that his calm presence would speak louder than any luxury. Inside the showroom, velvet ropes guided guests toward a sleek reception desk. 2 sales representatives waited, their smiles professional and welcoming. They recognized Marcus from previous visits and stood aside to let him pass. He greeted them with a warm good morning, and they returned the greeting, asking if he needed assistance. He explained that he had come to review the interior finishes wood panels, leather stitching, special trim colors for the demonstration model. The sales team led him to another Rolls-Royce parked inside, its doors open, as if inviting him to step into a world of quiet luxury. As Marcus examined the custom embroidery on the headrests, he heard the distant sound of footsteps on the showroom floor behind him, turned and saw 2 uniformed officers walking toward the car behind a small cluster of curious onlookers. The officers' jackets read NYPD in bold letters, though security staff in plain clothes were usually stationed. Here, these officers wore standard uniforms and carried a serious expression. Marcus felt a flicker of concern but reminded himself that the showroom was a public space. He gave them a polite nod. The officers approached the silver Rolls-Royce parked at the curb. One of them paused and looked at Marcus, who was still inside, the showroom examining the leather grain. The other officer stepped forward and peered closely at the car's license plate. Marcus watched as the officers' brows knit together in confusion. He recognized that the officers might have seen a luxury vehicle stopped alone and assumed it was unattended or stolen. He walked toward the entrance, moving quickly but without haste, hoping to explain himself before any mistake was made. Marcus's heart beat steadily, though he felt a slight tension in his shoulders. He pushed through the double glass doors and into the daylight. The showroom staff had noticed the officer's arrival and exchanged uncertain glances. Marcus raised a hand. In greeting to the officers, his posture open and non-threatening, he said, "Good morning, officers. May I help you with something?" His voice was calm, and he spoke slowly, choosing each word to keep the tone respectful. One officer turned to him and asked, "Sir, are you the owner of this vehicle?" Marcus nodded and pointed to the key fob in his jacket pocket. "Yes, officer, I am." He reached into his pocket and brought out the fob, setting it carefully on the car's hood. Then he held up his driver's license and insurance card with both hands. "Here is my license and the registration," he said. He extended the document so the officer could see them clearly through the windshield. "I'm here to finalize a donation program with the showroom staff." The officer took a step back and looked at the paperwork. His partner moved around the side of the car to verify the plate number. Marcus held his breath for a moment, noticing the swirl of thoughts in the other officer's eyes. He wondered if they would believe him or insist on detaining him until they verified the facts. He stayed poised, reminding himself that panic would only make the situation worse. He offered a small, reassuring smile. "I understand the confusion," he said softly. "Please feel free to check with the showroom manager." At that moment, the showroom manager, a tall woman in a dark suit, emerged from the glass doors. She spoke to the officers in a firm but polite tone. "Officers, this car belongs to Mr. Daniels and his wife. We've been working with them on a community outreach project." She gestured toward Marcus. "He's been here several times. You can check with me anytime." The manager's presence seemed to ease the officers' concerns. One of them nodded and handed the documents back to Marcus. Marcus accepted them with gratitude. He folded the papers carefully and placed them in his briefcase. He nodded to the showroom manager and the sales staff, offering a quick "Thank you, everyone." The officers remained by the car for a moment longer, their eyes flicking between Marcus and the license plate. Then, after a silent exchange, they straightened and stepped back from the vehicle. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him, took a slow breath, steadying his racing thoughts as the officers walked away. The showroom staff relaxed and offered Marcus friendly smiles. He raised a hand in thanks to the managers and turned back to the display car inside. The polished floor under his shoes felt firm and reassuring. The soft lighting of the showroom enveloped him in calm. He told himself this would make a good story to share later with friends, how a simple visit to the showroom had almost turned into a tense moment. Yet he knew that by staying calm and polite, he had prevented the situation from spiraling. With the officers now gone, Marcus turned his full attention to the showroom's project details. He ran his hand over the cream-colored leather seat, admired the grain of the wood trim, and discussed color options with the designer. The morning light shone through the tall windows, illuminating the car's sleek lines. Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. This project would bring joy to many young people in the city, and his quick thinking had kept the day on track. He smiled, closed the briefcase beside him, and dove into the plans, ready to turn a tense moment into a triumph for his community. Marcus stepped out of the showroom with a polite nod to the staff. The sunlight felt brighter now that the officers had left. He closed the glass doors behind him and returned to the silver Rolls-Royce parked under the awning. He opened the driver's door, settled into the seat, and closed the door behind him with a soft click. He placed his briefcase on the passenger seat and reached for his phone to check a few messages from his team about the community event. The engine's gentle purr filled the quiet morning air. He scrolled through the messages with calm focus. A notification reminded him of the lunchtime meeting with the youth group leaders. He tapped a quick reply, confirming the time and location. Then he pocketed his phone and sat back, enjoying a moment of quiet. The city moved around him. A delivery van honked as it pulled away. A cyclist rang her bell to pass, and a street artist set up an easel to paint the storefronts nearby. It was a normal day, and Marcus felt pleased that he had handled the earlier misunderstanding so well. He unfastened his seatbelt, stepped out of the car, and closed the door behind him. He walked around to the passenger side and retrieved his briefcase. As he did, he noticed the two officers standing a few yards away, looking back toward the showroom doors. They spoke quietly to each other, their heads close together. Marcus wondered if they still had doubts. He straightened his jacket and walked toward them with calm steps. "Officers," he said, his voice warm and respectful. "I wanted to thank you again for verifying my information. Is there anything else you need from me?" He offered a gentle smile. The nearer officer turned and looked at him. His partner folded his arms and watched. The officer cleared his throat. "There is one more thing," he said. "We got a report of a similar Rolls-Royce scene in a hit-and-run incident earlier this week. We're just making sure this is not that car." He spoke in a measured tone, as if offering an explanation. Marcus could hear the effort to remain professional in his voice. Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "I would not want you to miss a real suspect. Please feel free to look at any documents or run the plate again. I have nothing to hide." Reached into his briefcase, opened it carefully, and took out the vehicle's registration certificate. He handed it through the open window of the car. The officer took the papers and flipped through the pages. He compared the plate number on the certificate to the license plate. Marcus stood quietly beside the car, watching his polished shoes. Against the stone sidewalk, thought about his work with the city's youth program and the stories of young men who felt they had nothing to lose when they saw an encounter with police go wrong. He reminded himself to remain calm and measured in every word. The other officer stepped forward. "Sir, I need to ask you to raise your hands," he said. His hand hovered over his belt, where the holstered radio and handcuffs rested. Marcus froze. He had expected more conversation, not a command like this. His heart beat a little faster, but he forced his voice to stay even. "My hands?" he asked softly. The officer nodded. Marcus raised his hands slowly, palms open and visible. He could feel the weight of his briefcase strap pressing into his shoulder, but he kept his posture relaxed. The onlookers on the sidewalk paused too. Watch. A mother pushing a stroller, a suited businessman on his phone, a tourist with a camera. Marcus locked eyes with the nearest officer and spoke in a calm tone. "Of course," he said. "I just want to help. I'm not hiding anything." He gripped the briefcase strap with one hand and held his other hand open beside it. The officer glanced at him, then at his partner. The second officer frowned and motioned for Marcus to lean against the car. Marcus took a breath, bent slightly at the waist, and placed his palms flat on the hood. He felt the cool metal under his fingers. He kept his breath slow, steady, and his voice soft when he spoke again. "Is there something wrong, officers?" "I'm happy to cooperate," he said. He stayed respectful, even though he felt the unfairness of being treated like a suspect. Thought about how much earlier kindness had helped to diffuse situations. He hoped this would end quickly. The officer at his side checked his hands, then patted down his jacket gently. Marcus felt the officer's hand brushing the fabric but did not flinch. He reminded himself that any sudden move could make things worse. He closed his eyes for a moment and centered himself, thinking of his wife's laugh and the purpose of his day. He could almost feel Olivia's support behind him. The pat-down finished. The officer stepped back, straightened, and spoke into his radio. Marcus heard the crackle of sound as the officer gave his name and badge number. A voice on the other end answered back. Marcus could not hear the reply, but he saw the officer's expression shift. He glanced at Marcus more thoughtfully. Then an unexpected question came. "Sir, why did you call this location?" Marcus frowned slightly, surprised by the question. He answered honestly, his voice steady. "I have a partnership with the showroom for a city youth program," he said. "I am here to finalize their donation of a ride experience. I work with City Hall, and this is part of our outreach efforts." Officer looked at him for a long moment. He raised an eyebrow. Marcus saw doubt flicker in the officer's eyes, then a hint of apology. The second officer lowered his arms. The tension in the air eased a little. Marcus released his hold on the hood and turned to gather his briefcase. He held up the registration and license again. "You can see I'm the owner. If there is any other question, I will gladly answer," he said. He felt proud of how calm he sounded, though his heart still pounded. He reminded himself that strong emotions could betray him. He spoke slowly and softly, keeping the tone cooperative. The first officer sighed and handed back the license. "All right, Mr. Daniels," he said. "We appreciate your cooperation. We just have to follow up on any leads." The second officer nodded and stepped back. Both men straightened their posture and removed their hands from their belts. The moment of tension melted. Marcus took his documents, folded them carefully, and placed them back in his briefcase. He stepped away from the car, adjusted his jacket, and turned to the officers with a polite nod. "Thank you for your work. I hope you find the right person," he said. His voice was genuine, without bitterness. He felt relief wash over him. Officers watched him for a moment, then one of them spoke again. "Mr. Daniels, can you wait here while we verify a few details with the showroom manager?" Marcus stopped. He thought of the busy day ahead and the meeting he needed to keep. But he agreed. "Yes, of course," he replied. He set his briefcase on the car's side and watched as the officers walked toward the showroom doors. He stood quietly on the sidewalk, feeling the city buzz around him. Cars sped by in the next lane. A food cart vendor rang change for a customer, and a delivery cyclist threaded through traffic. Marcus took a deep breath and reminded himself of his purpose. This was more than a car and more than an identification check. It was a test of dignity and patience. After a few minutes, the showroom manager emerged, accompanied by the two officers. She walked with decisiveness, calling out to Marcus. "Mr. Daniels," she said, "I'm so sorry for the trouble," I confirmed. "With our records, that you are the owner of the car and the program lead." She offered a firm handshake to the officers, and they exchanged a brief professional nod. The first officer spoke. "Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate the clarification." He turned to Marcus. "Mr. Daniels, we apologize for any inconvenience. You are free to go." He gestured toward the car. Marcus nodded and collected his briefcase. He smiled at the officers. "Thank you for doing your job," he said. "I understand the need for caution." He opened the Rolls-Royce door and slid smoothly into the driver's seat. He placed his briefcase on the floorboard, fastened his seatbelt, and exhaled slowly. The officers walked away, returning to their patrol car parked a block down the street. Marcus watched them go. A small part of him wished he could thank them for their service. Instead, he started the engine and backed the car out from under the awning. The car's quiet power hummed as he guided it into traffic. He drove away feeling a mix of relief and reflection. Thought about people who did not have his calm or his privileges. He wondered how they might fare in a similar situation. Resolved silently to share this story with his youth group, to show them how respect, calm, and clear communication could steer a tense moment toward understanding as the city passed by taxis. Buses, cyclists, and skyscrapers. Marcus felt grateful. Grateful that no one was hurt and that the misunderstanding ended without more conflict. He took out his phone and typed a note to his wife. "Situation handled. On my way. Love you." He pressed send, then set the phone aside. The day was still young, and he had work to do. With purpose in his heart, Marcus guided the Rolls-Royce down Madison Avenue, ready to turn tension into opportunity for change. Marcus felt a sudden shock when the officer's hand closed around his wrist. He'd stepped forward to cooperate, to answer questions, and now he was being treated like a suspect in a crime. The metal of the handcuffs clicked as they locked, around his wrists, behind his back. He took a measured breath so he would not show panic. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. He had rehearsed in his mind how to handle a tense moment, and now all he could do was follow those instincts. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Some people paused on their way to work. A delivery driver leaned against his van, watching. With a curious expression, a young woman pushed a stroller backward, holding a camera phone in her hand. Marcus could hear hushed whispers. He heard someone say, "What's going on?" And another voice reply, "Looks like he's in trouble." He felt the weight of their eyes, but he chose not to look at them. He kept his gaze downward, focusing on staying steady. The officer who had first tried to handcuff him gave Marcus a firm pat on the back as he guided him toward the hood of the Rolls-Royce. The officer's grip was firm but not cruel. Marcus felt the leather of his jacket press against the cool metal of the car's hood as he leaned forward. He allowed the officer to adjust the cuffs, making sure they sat correctly. Above his wrists, he did not resist. He knew that any struggle could lead to injury or misunderstanding. If he stayed calm, he believed the truth would come out. Marcus's mind raced as he felt the officer's gaze scanning him from shoulder to waist. He thought of his wife calling him later, asking how the showroom visit had gone. He imagined the words he would use. It was almost perfect until this happened. He could picture Olivia's steady voice reassuring him. He held on to that image like a lifeline, reminding himself that he was more than this moment. He was a husband, a community leader, and a proud citizen who respected the law even when it seemed to misunderstand him. Another officer stood nearby, speaking into a radio. Marcus caught snippets of the conversation. Possible stolen vehicle. Waiting for confirmation. License status. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat and then opened them again. He had nothing to hide. But he also knew the system sometimes moved slowly. He needed to find a way to break through the confusion. He reached for his phone in his coat pocket, but his arms were pinned. He had to think quickly. "Officer," he said in a steady voice, turning his head slightly so the officer could see him. "Understand why you're doing this.
Please.
Check with the showroom manager. She can confirm everything right now." He swallowed. His voice did not tremble. He felt his words echo in the quiet morning air. A few heads in the crowd turned toward him, their curiosity deepening. The officer at his back paused and hesitated. Marcus sensed a shift. He felt the man's hand relax slightly on his elbow. He continued, "I work with City Hall. I'm helping with a youth program. If you call my office, they will confirm who I am." He named his department and his position. He hoped that rank and connection might prompt them to pause and verify the facts rather than proceed with the arrest. Suddenly a voice called out from the showroom entrance. It was the manager, her tone clear and firm. "Excuse me? This man is Mr. Daniels. He is not a suspect. He owns the car." She held up her phone. "I have the records here. Check them." The officer who stood near the radio took a step back and tried to peer past Marcus's toward the showroom. Marcus heard the manager speak with the officers, giving them details of their project and confirming his identity. Despite her words, the first officer did not immediately release the handcuffs. Instead, he leaned closer and asked, "Sir, did you just call for backup?" Marcus's mind raced. He wanted to explain, but the handcuffs cut off his range of motion. He let out a quiet, respectful sigh. "I was reaching for my phone to call my lawyer," he said. "I'm perfectly willing to let you verify everything. Before I do." He hoped his calm tone would reassure the officers that he posed no threat. A third officer arrived. He had a friendly face and seemed younger. He looked at the handcuffs at Marcus's folded arms, and then back at the manager. He tapped the radio and mouthed something to his colleagues. Marcus saw the younger officer glance at the registration papers lying on the hood. A moment passed. That felt like an eternity. Marcus's hands throbbed behind him, but he did not tighten his grip or wince. He refused to give them any reason to treat him more harshly. The senior officer straightened and looked at the younger man. They spoke in quiet tones. Marcus could not hear their words, but he sensed the older man's jaw loosen. They exchanged a nod. The senior officer then stepped aside and placed a hand on his holstered radio. He spoke into it. The radio crackled. A voice on the other end answered. Marcus tried to read the officer's lips. "We have the registration," owner confirmed. "Releasing subject." He dared to hope. Then the unexpected happened. The senior officer removed one hand from his radio and reached for the locks on the handcuffs. Marcus felt the cold metal free him. The senior officer said quietly, "Mr. Daniels, you are free to go. We apologize for the mistake. We had a report of a similar car." He handed Marcus back his phone, which he had. Retrieved from his pocket, Marcus flexed his hands carefully, feeling tingles as circulation returned. He nodded, keeping his voice low. "Thank you, officers," he said. He did not accuse them or speak harshly, could have demanded an apology or threatened legal action. But he chose courtesy. The senior officer seemed to appreciate the gesture. He gave a slight bow of his head before stepping back. Marcus straightened his coat and turned away from the hood of the car. The crowd on the sidewalk dissipated. Pedestrians resumed their walks. The delivery driver resumed his route. The young woman with the stroller lowered her phone. Marcus picked up his briefcase, felt its familiar weight in his hand, and took a deep breath of relief. He knew that stories like this could have gone badly. He thought of countless others who were not able to rely on a calm voice or a quick confirmation from a manager. He opened the door of the Rolls-Royce and eased himself into the driver's seat. He closed the door behind him and sat for a moment, letting the engine's quiet hum soothe him. He lifted his phone and sent a quick message to Olivia. "Situation handled. I'll be home soon." He added a heart emoji. Then he tucked the phone away. Marcus placed the briefcase on the seat beside him and reached across the console to adjust the climate controls. The dashboard lights glowed softly. He exhaled slowly and closed his eyes for a heartbeat. The tension in his shoulders eased. It thought about his morning, about the project that awaited him, and about the lesson he would share with his youth group today. That respect and composure could change the course of an ordeal. He shifted into drive and guided the car onto the avenue. The city pulsed around him once more. Taxis, buses, bicyclists, and pedestrians, all moving in their own directions. Marcus followed the flow, feeling gratitude for the chance to continue his work. He reminded himself to call the chief's office later, not in anger, but to thank them for correcting the mistake. He believed in accountability and fairness, and he wanted to play his part. As he pressed gently on the accelerator, the car glided forward. Sunlight danced on the chrome accents. He glanced at the rearview mirror and saw the showroom fade behind him. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, resolved to turn this tense moment into a story of patience, clarity, and quiet strength. He was determined that, by the end of the day, this incident would inspire others to stand tall when faced with misunderstanding and to remember that dignity, even under pressure, could be the truest form of power. Marcus sat in the driver's seat of the Rolls-Royce with his hands still tingling from the handcuffs. He let the engine idle and exhaled slowly. City noise drifted in through the closed windows, horns, distant voices, and the hum of traffic. He felt a mix of relief and frustration. Relief that the misunderstanding was over, and frustration that it had happened in the first place. He pressed a finger to his temple and closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of Olivia's soft voice, and of the project waiting for him. He needed to clear this up once and for all. He reached into his coat pocket and took out his phone. He tapped the contacts list and scrolled until he found the entry labeled Chief Harper. The name reminded him of the chief's calm manner and reputation for fairness. Marcus pressed the call button. The phone rang twice before a steady voice answered. "Marcus Daniels," he said. "Good morning, Chief. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need your help." On the other end, Chief. Harper sounded concerned. "Marcus, is everything all right?" he asked. Marcus told him briefly what had happened at the showroom, how officers had mistaken him for a suspect, handcuffed him, and only released him when the manager confirmed his identity. He kept his voice even, not letting anger take over. "No, you have a busy day, Chief," he said. "I just wanted you to know in case it comes up. I'd appreciate any help in making sure this doesn't happen again." There was a pause, and the chief spoke with firm kindness. "I'm very sorry, Marcus. That should never have happened. I'll send a lieutenant to review the incident and make sure the officers understand the mistake." Marcus thanked him and hung up. He felt lighter already. He knew the chief meant what he said. Marcus set the phone down and swallowed hard. He could almost feel the afternoon sun now shining through the windshield. He took a deep breath and shifted the car into gear. He drove a few blocks to the community center where he was to meet the youth group leaders. As he navigated through traffic, he thought about how close the day had come to derailing. He felt determined to focus on his work. He turned off his phone's sound so he would not be distracted. He parked under a shade tree in the center's lot, stepped out, and walked toward the entrance. He carried his briefcase in one hand and the faint memory of cold metal cuffs in the other. Inside, the center buzzed with activity. Kids laughed as they played basketball in the gym. An assistant handed out flyers in the lobby. Marcus greeted everyone with a warm nod. He set his briefcase on a table and opened it to take out packets of information. He told himself to let go of the anger and channel it into good work. He smiled when he saw the eager faces of the youth leaders ready to discuss tomorrow's program. He welcomed them and soon lost himself in planning details, schedules, volunteers, and community outreach. Meanwhile, miles away, Lieutenant Ramirez had received the chief's orders. She was known for her thoroughness and fair sense of justice. She parked her unmarked car near the showroom and walked inside. She carried a small notebook, a pen, and a calm expression. The showroom manager greeted her and walked her to a spot where the officers had been. The scene now was quiet and empty, the silver Rolls-Royce gleaming alone. Lieutenant Ramirez began by thanking the manager. She asked for a brief summary of what happened. The manager explained clearly. The officers saw the luxury car, assumed it was stolen, and then detained its rightful owner. Ramirez listened without interrupting. She asked calm questions. How the officers approached, how Mr. Daniels reacted, and what the manager did to confirm his identity. The manager answered each question as simply as Marcus had, with facts and no anger. After speaking with the manager, Ramirez stepped outside and found the two officers seated in their squad car. They looked tense when she approached. She flashed her badge, introduced herself, and asked if they could talk. They sat up, saluted, and followed her a short distance away. They stood beside the car, caps in hands. Ramirez explained that she had reviewed the report and heard from the showroom manager. She asked for their side of the story without accusation. The first officer spoke quietly. He said he saw a Rolls-Royce parked alone in a busy part of the city and thought it matched the description from a hit and run. He admitted he jumped to conclusions. The second officer nodded and added that they acted on old information and did not call for confirmation before handcuffing Mr. Daniels. Ramirez listened with a steady gaze. She took notes in her notebook, then closed it and spoke. You both made a mistake, she said. Her voice was firm but not harsh. You acted on incomplete information. Handcuffing a respected community leader without checking his ID more carefully was wrong. Our duty is to protect and serve, not to intimidate innocent people. She looked at each officer in turn. You will write a statement detailing what happened. You will also meet with Mr. Daniels to apologize in person and explain your actions. Then you will receive additional training on how to handle similar cases in the future. The officers looked at each other, then back at Ramirez. They nodded, accepting her decision. Ramirez confirmed the schedule for their statements and training. She asked them to join her in delivering the apology. They agreed. She thanked them for their cooperation and returned to her car. Back at the community center, Marcus wrapped up the meeting with the youth leaders. They were excited and full of ideas. He felt proud of the program they were building together. He gathered his papers and closed his briefcase. As he prepared to leave, he checked his phone. He saw a missed call from an unknown number in the NYPD main line. Left, he also saw a text, Lieutenant Ramirez here. Please meet me at the Midtown precinct in 1 hour for a brief apology. He nodded to himself. He would go. It felt important to close this chapter properly. He drove to the precinct, the silver car turning heads, but this time in curiosity. Rather than suspicion, he parked at a meter and walked inside. The reception officer recognized him from the morning's call and pointed him toward a small conference room. He entered and found Lieutenant Ramirez standing by a table with a plate of water bottles. She offered him a seat and a bottle. He smiled politely and took one. She introduced herself again and thanked him for coming. Mr. Daniels, she said, I'm deeply sorry for what you experienced today. I've reviewed the facts, and I see you were completely in the right. Our policy is to treat every person with respect and fairness, and we failed here. She looked him in the eye. On behalf of the NYPD, I apologize. Marcus felt a warmth rise in his chest. He had expected formality, but Ramirez's words were sincere. He nodded. Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate that. I know you all work hard, and mistakes happen. I just hope we can learn from today. He kept his tone measured, not bitter. Lieutenant Ramirez took a deep breath. We will, she promised. The officers involved will attend a sensitivity workshop, and will update our protocols. I'll personally follow up to make sure this incident leads to positive change. She paused. Is there anything else we can do for you? Marcus shook his head. No, just knowing that my experience will help improve the system is enough. He offered a small smile. They stood and shook hands. Ramirez escorted him out of the conference room and through the precinct lobby. Officers in uniform passed by and nodded respectfully. Marcus felt a sense of closure. He thanked Ramirez once more and left the precinct. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm. Marcus walked to the car, opened the door, and sat down. He closed his eyes and let the breeze flow through the open window. He thought about how quickly the morning's tension had transformed into resolution. He felt grateful for the chief's quick action and for Ramirez's fairness. He started the engine and drove home. On the way back, he stopped at a coffee shop. He treated himself to a simple latte and a pastry. He sat by the window and watched the city life flow by. He thought of Olivia and their life together. He thought of the youth in his program and how this story might inspire them to stand calmly for their rights. He thought of Karma how calling the chief had brought help when he needed it most. He smiled. After a quiet moment, he paid and walked back to the car. He slid into the driver's seat and drove the final few blocks home. He parked in the garage and switched off the engine. He stood for a moment, hand on the roof of the car, reflecting on his day. Then he locked the car and walked up to his apartment. He opened the door and stepped inside. Olivia looked up from the kitchen counter where she was preparing dinner. She smiled. "How did it go?" she asked softly. Marcus set down his briefcase and walked to her. "It went well," he said. "They apologized, and the officers will be retrained. The chief sent a lieutenant. Everything will be better." He reached out and took her hand. He felt the day's weight lift completely. They stood together in the soft glow of their home. Marcus felt a deep sense of peace. He had faced adversity with respect and calm. He had reached out for help when he needed it. He had seen that fairness could still win in a tense world. He hugged Olivia and whispered, "Thank you for being my strength." She leaned into him, and they both knew that tomorrow's work would continue, but for now, they could rest, confident that justice had found its way back to him. Marcus woke early the next morning with a sense of calm and purpose. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting the room in soft gold. He slipped out of bed and found Olivia still asleep. He paused by her side, watching the rise and fall of her chest. He felt grateful for her support yesterday. He dressed quietly in a simple shirt and jeans. He did not need a suit today. He just needed to be himself. He stepped into the kitchen where Olivia had set out coffee. She handed him a mug with a warm smile. He took a sip and felt the smooth taste comfort him. She asked gently how he felt. He rested a hand on her arm and said he felt at peace. "Yesterday was hard," he said, "but I think it will help more people than it hurt." Olivia nodded. She placed a comforting hand on his back. They stood together in silence for a moment, sharing a quiet strength before the day began. Marcus walked to his home office, where his laptop sat waiting. He opened it and saw messages from local news outlets. Porters had called overnight, wanting his story. He thought carefully. He knew his words carried weight. He wanted the truth, told plainly without anger. He typed a short email agreeing to a morning interview with the city newspaper, closed the laptop and prepared his notes. He wrote down a few simple points. Stay calm, speak with respect, emphasize fairness. Outside, the city had already come alive. Horns honked in the distance, delivery trucks rumbled by, and pedestrians hurried along the sidewalks. Marcus gathered his coat and briefcase. He kissed Olivia on the cheek and walked to his parked Rolls-Royce in the garage. He felt pride in the car, not for its luxury, but for what it represented now. It had carried him through a test of dignity, closed the garage door and drove to the newspaper office. When he arrived, he parked and walked into the lobby. Receptionist guided him to a small studio where the interviewer waited. She greeted him warmly and explained the format would be casual. Marcus appreciated that. He sat down and took a steadying breath. The interviewer began with a simple question. "Mr. Daniels, can you tell our readers what happened yesterday?" Marcus nodded and spoke clearly. He described how he went to the showroom to finalize a donation for youth scholarships. He spoke of the officers mistaking him for a suspect and handcuffing him. He paused, looking at the interviewer's attentive face. He said he felt fear and surprise, but chose to remain calm and respectful. He told how the showroom manager and Lieutenant Ramirez had helped clarify the situation. He said the chief had ordered an inquiry and the officers would receive further training. His words were even, without bitterness. The interviewer leaned forward and asked, "What do you hope people learn from your experience?" Marcus smiled gently. He said he hoped everyone would remember that respect and courtesy can turn a tense moment into an opportunity for understanding. He said he believed in the power of calm voices and clear facts. He spoke of the importance of holding authority accountable, but also of recognizing the hard work many officers do every day. He thanked those who had acted with fairness. After the interviewer thanked him and said the story would appear online this afternoon. Marcus left the studio feeling confident. He stepped outside and saw a group of young volunteers waiting to meet him at a neighborhood park. They greeted him with friendly waves and eager smiles. Marcus walked toward them, his briefcase in hand, and they gathered in a circle. The youth leader spoke first, thanking Marcus for his work and courage. The volunteers nodded in agreement. Marcus felt warmth fill him. He spoke about the program's goals: tutoring, sports, art classes. He told them he had learned a lesson about listening and trust. He said he hoped they, too, would stand up for what is right, but also listen to others with an open mind. Group listened quietly, then applauded. Their smiles made him feel that the day's events had not only helped him, but could help them too. Later, as he drove back home, he saw his email buzzing with notifications. A friend had forwarded the newspaper link. He opened the article and read the headline: Community Leader's Calm Response to Wrongful Detention Inspires City. He clicked the link and saw his story laid out simply, with quotes that matched his words. He felt a gentle thrill. Comments beneath the article praised his composure and called for more training and respect in police interactions. He closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair, grateful that his message had reached so many. That evening, the family gathered with neighbors at a small block party on their street. Tables held dishes passed from door to door: salads, fried chicken, pies, and lemonade. Children ran with sparklers, weaving between chairs. Adults exchanged stories under strings of paper lanterns. Marcus stood near the food table, talking with a neighbor about the program's next event. The neighbor nodded and said they would volunteer. Others thanked him for sharing his experience in the news. Marcus felt the bond of community surround him. Later, Olivia pulled him aside. She led him to the front porch swing where she sat. He joined her, and they watched the lights twinkle over the street. She asked how he felt. He closed his eyes and said he felt hopeful. He felt that yesterday's ordeal had changed more than just one morning at the showroom. He felt it had sparked conversation and brought people together. He squeezed her hand and said he was proud to walk this journey with her. The next day, Marcus received a call from the NYPD chief's office. Chief Harper himself expressed his appreciation for Marcus's calm handling of the situation and his cooperation in the inquiry. He invited Marcus to speak at a future police training seminar about de-escalation and community relations. Marcus accepted. He felt honored to use his experience to help improve understanding between citizens and officers. In the weeks that followed, the story continued to ripple through the city. Local radio invited him to share his thoughts. A community meeting featured his outline for youth outreach and respectful dialogue. The officers involved met with Marcus privately, apologized again, and told him they had learned from the incident. Marcus forgave them fully and thanked them for being willing to change. He believed that forgiveness is part of strength. Months later, at a summer festival organized by his youth program, a lineup of shiny cars offered free rides for scholarship fundraising. The silver Rolls-Royce stood among them, gleaming under the sun. A line of young people waited, chatting excitedly. When his name was announced, Marcus stepped forward and presented a check to the program. Cameras flashed as Olivia stood by his side, clapping. It felt like a full-circle moment. A car that once caused confusion now helped bring joy and opportunity. As the ride began, one young man asked Marcus for his advice. Marcus smiled. He told him about listening calmly, about speaking clearly, and about standing up for one's rights without anger. The young man nodded thoughtfully as he buckled into the back seat. Marcus waved as the car rolled forward, its engine almost silent, carrying hope down the street. That night, alone in his study, Marcus reflected on the year's journey. He opened a journal and wrote, "Yesterday was a test of fairness. Today is a chance for growth. Tomorrow will be our chance too. Change the world together." He closed the journal and looked out his window at the city lights. He thought of every person who had helped, from the showroom manager to the chief To his neighbors and community, he felt gratitude and purpose, whispered softly, "This is how karma works, not as revenge, but as a chance for all of us to learn, to forgive, and to grow." He turned off the lamp and lay down to sleep, knowing that the story he lived was only the beginning of positive change in his city.